Like these students in this picture, many classrooms around the country look like this. The teaching method, similar to the behaviorist approach, where students try to gather the information while sitting in their seats and retaining it from the teacher. I must admit, my teaching style was like this when I first began in the same way in which I learned. But my goal now is to change my style of teaching to more of a social constructivist perspective. My goal is that my students will work together to learn the information, and each student contributes to the other student's learning. The Rocket Egg Challenge is a 6th grade science lesson that I developed that would challenge students with 2 goals. The first goal is that in groups of 3 or 4, students build a rocket using a 2-liter pop bottle as the basis that would propel the rocket with pressurized water to a given distance. The other goal is that they design a capsule that would protect a rocket's passenger. The passenger is a raw egg. This lesson is similar to the egg drop, but I wanted to create it in a way so that it challenged the kids a little bit more and it had a more of a real-world application to it. Before we started this challenge, we did already cover the steps of the scientific method. We've discussed the terms of variables and controls. We did do other experiments in practicing the scientific method. So this was kind of an end result of their knowledge for the scientific method. We discussed before starting the challenge that this was sort of a real-world scenario. They were just like the scientists that created the space shuttle or the rockets that sent the man to the moon and having to design the rocket and protect the astronauts inside. So in their groups, they individually adapted the design of their rocket, the materials that they used, they gathered from home, they brought them in. There were only a few materials that they gathered from class, such as paper and some other adhesive Scotch tape. Masking tape was given to them. In setting up the requirements for this challenge, I only gave them a few controls. 1 being they had to use the 2-liter pop bottle, and 2, they had to use water as their propellant in their launch. We did have a launcher that the whole team used, and so that was another control. Over several periods, over several days, we did multiple testing, and this is really where the students learned all the processes of the scientific method. They also worked with force. We did math concepts of mass and volume, and then they had to use their writing abilities to explain each step, come up with a different hypothesis and different conclusion, and write about all the steps that they performed each day. They changed their variables from day to day, and they also used some graphing to graph their results. After all the testing was complete, on the final launch day, this was their time to see if their rocket and the variables that they had tested would meet the 2 goals, that the rocket would achieve the launch distance, and was their egg protected well enough. For me, the lesson was a success. All the students applied their knowledge of the scientific method along with the math and their writing skills, and they did it in a social collaborative environment, and they were motivated and really engaged. Every student was engaged. From my perspective as a teacher, I truly became more of a facilitator. I really just guided them when they had questions, but overall with most of the groups they just worked very well together. They each drove their own learning and application of their learning while they also enjoyed this mission that they were on. From a teaching approach, the traditional behaviorist approach is not as effective for today's students. I believe that the constructivist approach far exceeds the benefits for the students of today. These students are already working together, sharing their ideas through technology, using things like social networking sites, email, IMing, online games. I believe that the classroom of today is in serious need of transformation. It needs to support today's students. We need to make these changes so that they are engaged, they are motivated. And this method of the social constructivist approach is definitely the perspective we should have in all classrooms today.